Well, gentlemen, you look awful refreshed after what was probably a 6-month lift for a 5-day sprint. That once again, your service to the industry can't be sort of measured at all. I mean, what you guys have done with LSI by far has become the iconic event of the industry. So congratulations and good to see you both refreshed.
Thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thanks for having us. We're honored to play our part, and thank you for all that you do to help us build this really important platform.
Yeah, Scott, let's run through the numbers for those that don't know. I don't know, what was this, the 9th LSI and the 6th US? What's the numbers here?
So this was our 6th USA meeting, 9th meeting in total, and we're excited about coming up on our 10th meeting, which will be our inaugural launch of LSI Asia, which happens in just a couple months.
Yeah, yeah, and Henry, you were talking about LSI, Europe, LSI, Asia, and I loved an analogy that you used before we went on air. If you could share it, lines, not dots, and I think that's a pretty prolific statement.
Yeah, we're really excited about a lot of the success that we're starting to see. Obviously, this year's event was great, but I think what's really exciting is thinking back to 2021, 2022, companies that were there raising capital, for the first time that now are raising subsequent rounds, having commercial success, companies that attended that event that are now acquired and their executives are back as investors or in their kind of second or third act. And a lot of those people, when you talk to them who have attended multiple LSI meetings, they have this idea of thinking about their journey in lines, not in dots. And so with 1,650 attendees plus at this past event, we're really excited about people continuing that journey through our global meetings and next year's LSI USA. The continuity within the community is incredibly strong. And I think that really plays a role as we welcome new companies and new investors in, and we have people who have been there through many points of their company story. You think about a company like Vitestro, for example, who came to the European meeting, now many years later has raised that big round. Now they're on stage talking about the learnings from that round, and folks like Andy McGibbon who have come in from Sonder into that company, sharing that journey. Those are the kinds of companies we track very closely, and we see how they continue to grow and the new relationships they build at each subsequent meeting. So there's dozens of companies like that, and we continue working not only to bring new companies into the equation, but to build an experience that supports companies at each stage of the journey so they can connect those dots into a longer term line through LSI, as opposed to just this point in their in one of their many months and many busy times of the year.
Yeah, Scott, I got a question for you. Did you ever imagine when you ideated LSI for the very first event that, and I know there's no other show that does this, no other show, no other networking show, that LSI isn't just you putting people together. LSI is everybody sharing their network with each other. And that doesn't happen anywhere else. You have this aggregation compounding phenomenon that occurs at LSI. Like, I expose my whole network,
Yeah.
Vincana will, all the people involved in there.
Yeah.
You didn't see that coming. There's no way.
No, didn't see it coming, and I couldn't agree more. The generosity of our ecosystems, just the sharing of networks is phenomenal. In fact, somebody put out a post recently, and I thought he did a really good job of articulating like 7 or 8 takeaways. And one of the takeaways was the value that he received from industry veterans that were willing to get up and genuinely share their insights and their learnings over the years. So you think about execs like Paul LaViolette and Jay Watkins, and you could go down the list of people that have had tremendous success in the industry, have sat on all sides of the table, and they come to an LSI event and they get on stage and they share the things that worked really well. They share the things that didn't work so well, and they just continue to be generous, not only with their insights, but back to your point, with their networks. And I think that is a magical thing that happens when you get really good people together that want to do the right thing, while trying to run a business and do well with the business side of things. And it doesn't happen overnight. We didn't anticipate it happening this way, but it's rolling. The momentum's there, and people want to give back, and it's incredible.
Yeah,
But
and
Joe, Scott's too humble, I have to say, because he's right on a lot of those variables of what makes that happen. But I can tell you from having been a customer of LSI before coming into the team, it is a thing that you feel as a customer that is different than what I felt at any other trade show. And I think in large part it comes from one, the experience that Scott set out to create by putting this event inside a high-end premium experience where people want to be. The venue, the food, the media, all those things really kind of bring that guard down, make people feel like they can engage authentically and be themselves. And it's not just the transactional, hey, this is what I'm looking to raise, blah, blah, blah. Oh, not for me. Okay, next person. There is a lot of that helping and sharing that comes more like when you're in a social setting than when you're in a, professional business setting. And two, no one is more generous than, with their network and time than Scott. And I think a lot of people really pick up on that. It's baked into our culture of our team. And I think that really permeates through the community that's, now been built event over event, that comes to these events, not just to advance their own business, but to give back to the community and see the ecosystem at large thrive.
yeah, look, it's deliberate by nature. I think one of the reasons why most of us stay in this industry is because the quality of the people and the work that we do and the mission ahead, right? To extend and save lives. And all of us could probably go into another industry and probably make more money. But we stay in this industry and we start to aggregate, and every once in a while somebody leaves and they immediately come back. So you can put those same groups of people together in Dublin or other areas of the world, but that's not the same dynamic. What LSI has done, as somebody who frequents all of those, what LSI has done is created this infectious environment. And Henry, like you said, some of it's by property choice, some of it's by construct of, like this year you had the workshops. That construct was brilliant, right? Then you have the signature series you're working on. Then you have the studios. And then the bar is located, like as many deals happen in that bar area, from 6 in the morning till 11 at night. So the actors are all the same, but you guys have really created the right theater for that. What do I call it? The unintended collisions that happen at LSI that are just unmatched. So, that's what people have to understand if they're thinking about going the first or the coming up 10th time.
Yeah, I actually want to ask you a question, Joe, about that, because that unintended collisions post had some follow-on legs, and I've actually had conversations with other people who have really rallied around it. In fact, Brian Lord, CEO of Pristine Surgical, longtime LSI alumni, really he had a very specific example of what that meant to him and how it played out. And one of the things that we do a lot around here, as everyone is that's running a business, is we look at the numbers. How many attendees are there? Where are they from? How many partnering meetings are taking place? Who's raising capital? How much did they actually raise the capital? All metrics that are very measurable, that are really important, that we have to watch. The thing that's really hard to measure is what you've described as these unintended collisions. They're the meeting somebody in the elevator you didn't think you were going to meet, ending up in an Uber, at the bar, whatever it is. Those things are so hard to measure, but I almost think are more powerful than any metrics that you can look at. What prompted you to think of that? Is this something that's been brewing or just occurred to you at this last event?
It's always been front of mind for me, because if you think about, if I don't care what industry you're in, you can have a plan, and it's good that you have a plan. But if we think back about either the person we married, that we're in a relationship with, the school we went to, most of the things in our lives happened in an unintended collision that were orders of magnitude more than what we planned. And so, when I look at LSI, some of the biggest deals I've ever made were from me just happening to be at the right place at the right time without a plan or a phone call.
Those are the stories I like to hear about most online, or those connections that happen. And then the really, I think, special thing is following how those relationships grow and how we help each other later. And we leave a company, end up at a new one, and we do a deal because of a connection that we made. I think that's where some of the real, again, immeasurable but important power will come out of what we're trying to build here. The other thing I just wanted to add to that was, and we talked about this prior to the call, is kind of like what's happening, what's important. You know what for us is really important to recognize, and we talk about this internally, is that we are 5-6 years into this. We know it takes time to get a product to market in our industry. We know that there are long life cycles in our industry, but it's working. It's actually working. We're seeing cycles come through. Henry talked about this earlier, but you have companies, and I like to go back to this one because it's really special to me. Cathworks, literally our first presenting company. 6 years ago, scrappy startup raising capital, and now you fast forward today to where they're at. They're one of the biggest success stories in our industry, and you've got their CEO Ramin Mousavi running different panels each year talking about kind of his journey and sharing his insights. And we have example after example like that. So it's working, but it's working because of the collective engagement of the industry. And again, we're just honored that we get to play a small piece of that.
Let's go over the layers here and the importance, and Henry, I'd love your thoughts on this. We've got Dana Point, now we've got for the very first time Asia, we've got Europe. The importance to know that these are all independently valuable in their own, and they continue to compound on the depth of relationships that you have. Agree, Henry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about an investor like Luc Maringer from TVM Capital, that they started joining us in the European meetings and now have pulled through to the US meetings. They invested in a company called Vector Medical, which is out of San Diego, and they did it with Solas BioVentures in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So you think about the international syndicate of investors and companies represented there. That globalization is something that we're excited to continue to play a role in. The events themselves, while they follow similar immutable things, they will always be in premium venues. They will always be digital media forward. We will always take active steps beyond just creating opportunities for one-on-one collisions to curate meetings like we're doing with our Breakfast with Investors program now to get presenting companies more in-depth, authentic, but relaxed access to the investors and strategics at the event. We'll always continue doing things like that throughout these events, but the communities represented at these events, the regions where these people come from, they're all distinct and they all have their own unique opportunities. The things that we're going to be doing at the LSI Asia event to create access and more exposure to the opportunities to establish manufacturing, R&D, supply chain in Asia Pacific and Southeast Asia particularly, are very distinct from what we're going to be doing in London to understand that ecosystem and lean into its strengths. What we did in Barcelona with the local growing health tech and med tech scene there, the investors that are represented in that region, as well as those that want access. We really lean into the places we go. And the goal is that the community that comes with us, across and creates those lines in their stories, get broader, more diverse, and more in-depth access to the global medtech ecosystem, and those that are there at each one benefit from that as well.
No doubt. So as we wrap up, you're just recovering, but you're also teeing up the next big event. What are people thinking about right now, Scott and Henry, that should get them over the line so we can all see them in Asia coming up? Besides it being unbelievable in Singapore.
It's gonna be my first trip there, but can't wait to be. I'll start and I'll let Henry kind of round it off. So first of all, the momentum is phenomenal, and so there is a large following of alumni. They're going to be coming from our core U.S. event over to Singapore. There's also been this general appetite for information on accessing the markets in the APAC regions. There has been an appetite for information on who to connect with, where is the capital, who are the innovators. And so we've been this decision to move to Singapore was not an overnight decision. The decision came after years of really inbound inquiries from our ecosystem saying, hey, how do I access the market? Is there capital there? Who are the players? What does the innovation look like? And so I think a meeting there like this is long overdue. We're excited to be having the current ecosystem coming over, but it's really refreshing to see new contacts across the board popping up. We're on call after call with, you know, insiders from that region that really want to be a part of it. And Henry and his team have spent a lot of time maintaining and grooming those relationships. So maybe you want to give us an update on what you're hearing, Henry.
Yeah, I think some of the things that are really exciting about this event, obviously being in year one, a lot of this is driven by new partnerships and relationships. That's with people like the Economic Development Board of Singapore and EDBI, their investment arm, A-Star, Enterprise SG, SG Innovate, working on new relationships in regions like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Korea. So we have a lot of strong partnerships that I think offer a lot of new value to international companies and investors that are looking to access that region, be it for market access, manufacturing, supply chain R&D, and new sources of capital. New private family office capital as well. That's an initiative that Scott and I have really spun up over the past couple years of trying to not only bring a critical mass of money currently in medtech to these meetings, but bring new sources of capital to the events, and that's going to be continued through Asia with the presence of family offices in Singapore and similar regions. There's also a tremendous pull through of strategics. There's a lot of really exciting local strategic activities happening there with large companies like Edwards, Smith and Nephew, Siemens, which will all be represented at the event, Biotronic, et cetera. We're going to have both local leaders from these strategics. And then when you look at some of our other large partners like Medtronic, we're not only going to have US representation, but we're going to have local representation to complement it. US based Medtronic Ventures and corporate development alongside Medtronic Greater China Ventures, for example. So this is going to be a really unique collision, to use that word, of regional and domestic leaders in the APAC region with international companies, investors, and strategics. And I think that some of the themes that we're seeing emerge from our US event have really interesting pull throughs and continuity in Asia Pacific.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't wait. It's going to be a hell of a plane ride, but it's going to be worth every dime of it and every second of it. And gentlemen, I have to thank you on behalf of the entire medtech industry for putting on the most glorious, fruitful, and funnest and highest class event there is. So glad to be a partner with you on it.
Thank you, Joe. And we thank you right back for your support since day one and helping us build this thing. And we say this all the time. We feel good about where we're at, but we know we have a lot of work to do, and we cannot do it without partners like TMG. So the thank you goes right back to you in return. I think the only thing that you and I need to figure out is instead of just seeing each other on the way into the event and then on the way out of the event, we should probably figure out if we could squeeze in a lunch or something in between. And maybe we can bring Henry and we can use his credit card.
I'm in. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Good to see you again. And I'll see you in a couple months, I guess, if not before. Henry or Scott, are you guys going to be in Israel with us? One of you two guys going?
I am.
All right,
We'll
good. So I'll see you in Israel in a couple weeks. I'm Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Be well.